Here is our last video in chapter 6, and it may be the easiest one I've done. So the last thing that we have to do in 6.8 is we have to graph cube roots, which look different than square roots, but the movement and the transformation is much simpler. So a cube root graph, and you can graph this on your calculator, but sometimes it's nice for me to just kind of show you what it looks like by hand. A cube root graph, if it's positive, so if the a value, the number in front, is a positive, it looks like this. I like to describe it to students as a snake graph. It starts off below the x-axis, snakes up through the origin. The one point that all of the parent functions will have in common is that origin point. And then after the origin, it kind of hovers above the x-axis. If it's negative, it just switches. It starts off above the x-axis, it snakes through the origin, and then goes below the x-axis. So those are all of your cube root functions. Now, we can change them by adding and subtracting and moving them left or right or up or down, but they all have the same general shape and the general look. And I've always thought of it as like a snake function for some reason. Now, as far as domain and range, you rarely hear anything asked about them because your domain and your range are all real numbers no matter what I do to this cube root graph. It's still going to extend left and right both directions. It's still going to extend up and down both directions, even if I shift it or flip it or move it in one way or another. So here's the types of things you could see. You'll be given a function and you're asked to describe the shift and then draw a picture. So I like to describe the shift first. It helps me draw the picture. So this one, because it has a +4 under the radical, just like we talked with square roots, that's going to move it to the left 4. And because it has a -1 after, it's going to move it down 1. So if I go on my picture and I go left 1, 2, 3, 4 and down 1, that's the point that kind of looks like what the origin did in the parent function. So now when I draw it, I'm going to start under that. I'm going to go up through it and then above. So it's still a snake-like graph. It's just that kind of changing point where it goes from below to above is a different spot. For the next one, now this one is going to flip because we're going to have that reflection because of the negative, and because it has a -2 underneath, it's going to go right 2. So on my graph, I'm going to go right 2 and I'm going to put a point. But when I draw it, instead of starting out below it and approaching it, I'm going to start out above, and then I'm going to go through and go below. So let me show you what delta math looks like. So with delta math, it's going to, let me specifically look at cube root functions, cube root functions. And it's going to ask you to find this x plus 3 value. So with this x plus 3, that's going to shift it 3 to the left. So that's going to take this and move it 3 to the left. Oh, I went a little bit low. And it just wants you to have that movement. It just wants you to show that you know how to manipulate it to the right direction. And that's all you're doing is you're going through, and you can do it by like clicking on it and kind of dragging it. Let me show you a similar one. Let me show you one that has a little more variety. Are there ones with variety? Maybe not. Maybe not. Oh, you know what? Let me try to find a level 2 one. That might give you a little more variety. Go to the problem. Let's do a cube root. So here's, let's see if I can get one that, here we go. This is about as hard as it gets. So this one is going to go 3 left and 2 down. So you're going to drag it over 3 and down 2. And I like that they put it in green so you can kind of move that green point. And then you're going to submit that. So that is the last thing in chapter 6, is looking at how you graph cube roots. I hope that makes sense.